It's the same script, the same cult agenda, just a different era of the sequence.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Today, I authorize armed forces of the United States in a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians.
Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested.
On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
We are answering the calls of a threatened people, and we are acting in the interests of the United States and the world.
Operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
The attack on Iran is part of this sequence I'm talking about. Just as the invasion of Iraq was, and the invasion of Libya and all the rest. And as well as being part of the sequence, it's also an attention diverter, and it's diverting attention from the real deal that's going on in the background, which is the incessant advancement towards AI, human fusion, and the digital dystopia agenda.
David Icke, what an honour it is to talk to you. And I last talked to you in 2022 when we were at the height of the baby will madness, trying to get Ardern to listen to the people who wanted unjabbed blood for their baby who was 3 months old and having an operation. And you heroically came on a fundraiser that we did for the family and helped us then. That issue still remains unresolved. People around the world want unjabbed blood still. But we move on inexorably towards the next issue and the next. And the current one is this latest war. So we see in that short we've just come out of you saying it's the same script with Iran, it's the same cult agenda. Just tell people, really hit them between the eyes, what is really going on. It's not about saving the women of Iran, this war, is it, David?
No, that's the last thing it is. The thing is, if you break down the whole foundation of the agenda for the total, that's what's planned, the total control of humanity, right down to what people think and how people emotionally react, then it comes down to one thing. And everything that is happening comes down to this. It is control of perception. If you control perception, you control behavior. If you control behavior of the masses, you control the world. And so, things like censorship are not done for a bit of fun. They're done in the interests of controlling perception. So if you are putting out, take the COVID situation. The World Health Organization, which is a manifestation of this global cult, as I call it, this global network of secret societies that operate through every country, then you had the World Health Organization and Ted Ross, this gopher for Gates, who's a gopher for the Rockefellers, giving out a narrative of what we should believe about COVID. At the same time, the Silicon Valley corporations, also cult creations, were censoring, deleting other ways of looking at the COVID situation that would give people the opportunity to see that they actually might have a different perception of what's going on and not the one they're told to believe by the World Health Organization. And that censorship was all directed at perception. So if you have basically one source of information, you're going to form your perceptions from it, or overwhelmingly, most people are anyway, not everyone. But if you have other explanations and opinions of what's going on, then there's a very, very good chance you might go, well, actually, I'm not sure I believe what that Ted Ross is saying. This makes more sense to me. So you want to stop that. And that's what censorship is all about. It's all about control of perception. So if you look at the invasion of Iraq in 2003, the perception they wanted us to believe is that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction that could hit British targets within 45 minutes, as the mega liar Tony Blair claimed, and that therefore we have to remove Saddam Hussein and his regime, even though the same people used Saddam Hussein to attack Iran between 1980 and 1988 using chemical weapons supplied to Saddam by the US, not least through a guy called Donald Rumsfeld, who later became Secretary of Defense during the whole 9/11 and wars in the Middle East that followed. That whole period, Donald Rumsfeld was Secretary of Defense. And so they just pick out a story. It's just a story. That's all it is. And it's a story to get you to see that what they want to do is justified. And what you have now in Trump, as I pointed out in 2016, when he first came on the political scene, you have an ignoramus. You have a malignant, narcissistic psychopath who has very little brain activity that can be discerned. And he's surrounded himself, as you would expect, with people of the same mentality, like Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, as it's called now. And so it's more difficult for them to hide it because they're much less subtle. I mean, not that Boy George Bush, the president at the time of 9/11 and the invasion of Iraq was subtle, but it was more a little bit more subtle. But now it's, to anyone paying attention, it's blatantly obvious what they're doing. And that is that there is an agenda, which I wrote about and said in talks going way back, it's all on video, to attack Iran, because Iran then has the potential to trigger in Russia, trigger in China. And of course, Iran's part of this BRICS grouping of countries dominated by China. And if you want a much wider conflict, then Iran is a very, very good target. And the thing is, over the years, Liz, I've of course had extraordinary levels of ridicule and abuse for saying that actually this global cult, as I call it, this network of secret societies, is merely serving the interests of a non-human force in another dimension of reality. Call it the astral dimension, if you like. And so this cult is playing out events and making events happen that are following the agenda of this other dimensional level, this non-human level. And so what can happen is you can get pulled in to the gopher level of all this. So you look at Trump, gopher. You look at Hegseth, gopher. You look at Netanyahu, gopher. You look at all these gopher levels that are running countries. Ardern, classic, former aide to Tony Blair. That doesn't get much worse. And you can get caught in that. Oh, what's Trump doing now? What's Trump saying? There's going to be talks. And what's Iran saying? You can get caught in that. But actually, from this level, they're all controlled by the same force via this cult. So when you go into that deeper level, deeper in the shadows, if you like, beyond these gophers, that's where it's coming from. And at that level, Trump is controlled by the same force that controls Netanyahu and Starmer and Macron and all these apparently different leaders of countries. In the end, they're all answering to the same force. Many of them won't even realize that. In fact, most of them won't even realize that, but some will. And if you're looking at people like Trump and Netanyahu, they absolutely will know who they're answering to ultimately.
It's so extraordinary to hear you speak. I mean, 5 years ago, do you know it's 6 years today in New Zealand, the 25th of March, we're recording this, since Ardern locked us down for this absolutely giant rort, this con of COVID. So it's quite a propitious day. And had the people of New Zealand stood up and said, we don't believe you. The hospitals are not overflowing. We're not seeing anybody dying in the streets. This is not a pandemic. We're not going to go along with what you're doing. We don't trust our government enough to give you power over our bodies. Had we all stood together and done that, none of this would be rolling out now. But on the bigger picture, you talk about an external force to this very globe that is running this. Many people talk about this as a spiritual war of good and evil, and we know that these governments serve evil. Where do you think there is any hope in this? I need to divert onto that today, because in New Zealand today, we're right at some people call it in the vernacular, the arse end of the world, where there's no pipeline that can reach us with oil. We're rapidly running out of our petrol and oil reserves in this country. Plane flights are now being grounded today, 2 airlines, Air New Zealand and Jetstar. So we are going to be very much subject to a terror campaign in this country very quickly about how we must not drive our cars, how we must stay home, we must work for home. This is COVID 2.0. And when I put out a small request today, David, on Facebook, I said, if you were going to interview David Icke, what would you ask? There was a question, quite a tentative question from somebody who said, well, could you just ask him if there's any hope at the moment? So if it is a war of good and evil, or a war of forces that are beyond this globe, where's the hope for us, the humanity? What can we do, David? Let's start there.
Well, there is hope. Hope is a very manipulative word, in the sense that hope is always in the future. Hope is never in the now. It's always in the what we call the future. So it's like accept the shite now in the hope that it will get better. I say we don't accept the shite now. That's my approach. Now, before I get into, although it is part of the answer, get into the way we can respond to this. Let's just look at the level, if you like, of the world that we see, the world that we experience. How many people are in New Zealand currently? What's the population? 3 million something, 4 million?
It's a little bit over 5 million, and they're rapidly trying to increase. Oh, they're rushing in Indians, open borders. And one of my best friends is an Indian doctor, but they're rushing them in as they are in the UK. And now we hear that Muslims are being rushed into the country, probably for our election in November,
Yeah, and
just
the
to
same's
ramp up
happening
numbers.
with Asia, China in Australia, of course.
Yes.
As I saw myself the last time I was there before they banned me in 2019.
It's a mark of
So
honor.
yeah, it is really. So how many people in full knowledge of what they're doing are controlling and directing the lives of the 5 million? Tiny number by comparison. So mathematically, it should be, and you kind of play this across 8 billion people, we're told, us in the world against the number of people that are driving the direction of the world towards greater and greater dystopia. Again, a tiny number by comparison with the 8 billion. So mathematically, it's obviously impossible for the few to control the many. Mathematically, it's impossible. So then you look at what we think we know about history, known human history, or what we think we know is human history, and you see a pattern. The few have always controlled the many.
Yes.
What? How? Why? And to what end? But here's the story. Okay. What you have to do, you're the few, and you know, it is the few, and you're looking at this vast population. If you're looking at New Zealand, 5 million, but if you're looking at the world, 8 billion, and you think, okay, if that lot even began to unite against the common threat, i.e. me, then the house of cards I'm seeking to build, because that's what it is, will come down overnight. So how do we change that? Gotcha. This is what we do. We get them to believe in some belief system, as long as there's many of them, and as long as they believe it rigidly and without question. We get them into different belief systems. We get them into religious belief systems, and with a different story for each religion. We get them into political belief systems of left or right or whatever. So left sees the right as the enemy, the right sees the left as the enemy. So what would this give us? Well, first of all, it would put the belief system people, which is almost everybody, in a box, in a perceptual box, and they wouldn't go beyond the box where the answers lie and the real kind of open your mind, see what's really going on lies. We don't want them going there. Oh, no, there, keep them there. And what we'll do is we'll create a mentality which we'll call religion, but it's really a mentality. It will express itself in many, many ways as different religions like Christianity and Islam and Hinduism and all of it. But really, it's a mentality. And therefore, we can apply the same mentality to apparently the opposite of religion in our duality created dystopia. We can apply it to orthodox science. Because what you've got with orthodox science is a religion, the religion mentality. There is an orthodoxy. This is how it is. And anyone that goes beyond the orthodoxy, goes beyond the religion, is a pseudoscientist or dabbling in the paranormal. And if you go beyond the religious stories and you start to explore possibility beyond the story, then you are dabbling in the occult. Whoa, it's the devil. And what is occult? What does the word occult mean? It means hidden. And hidden knowledge is hidden for a reason, because it will give us a fantastically greater fix on what's going on. And hidden knowledge can be used for horrors, and it is, or it can be used to set us free. Depends how you use it. So first of all, you've got to get people stuck in belief systems. I like that Ardern, that Jacinda. I like her. I do. I'm voting for her. Everything she says, I agree with. And if they say something different, well, they're opposing my hero, so I'm going to oppose them, and so it goes on. The Trump thing is a phenomenally great example of all that. But once you have the different belief systems rigidly believed, then you've got the perfect environment for the essential element of the few controlling the many: divide and rule. Because what you do is you play the population off against each other so that they're so busy fighting each other, they don't realize that the strings attached to all sides are held by the same hand. So suddenly you start to get free to manipulate at will, because you've set the target population at war with itself. The other thing you need to do is you have to get the population. You know, they talk in religion about, you must fear God. You must be God-fearing. Well, for me, any God worth the name does not want to be feared, nor does it want to be worshipped, actually. But what you do is you make government and authority the God, the political God.
Yes, I can see that.
So you want people to fear authority. So there's three types of people, many different types, but three very distinct groups of people. You can relate this to COVID. You can relate it to everything. Two of these groups are responsible for every tyranny in history. And the third group are responsible for ending every tyranny in history. And the first group says, I'm going to obey authority without question. If authority says it, it must have my best interests at heart. Well, actually, it probably doesn't by experience, but, okay. So when they say lockdown, have the jab and all this stuff, you just do it. Then there's group number two. And group number two says, I don't really want to do it. I've got some questions, but what are the consequences of not doing it? Ooh, no, I'll do it. And those two groups are responsible for every tyranny in history. Communist, fascist, doesn't matter, because communists and fascists never impose communism and fascism, because there's never enough of them. They come in, tyranny comes in by those two groups acquiescing, giving their power to tyranny in the form of acquiescence. So you come to group number three. That says, I've opened my mind, I've done a bit of research, and I don't have to do much to realize you're freaking lying to me. So not only do I know you're lying to me, I ain't cooperating with you because I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to create a tyranny, and I'm not cooperating. And that group has ended every tyranny in history. I mean, if you look at overturning tyranny, it's come from a few people originally who've said, look, I'm not cooperating with this. I'm going to refuse to cooperate with it. And what happens then is group number two, I don't really want to do it, but what are the consequences? It sees the momentum in the overturning of the tyranny, and then it starts to come on board.
Yes.
Tagging on the end.
Yes.
And that's how every tyranny in history has come down, and how every tyranny in history has been imposed. You cannot impose tyranny on a population of 5 million in New Zealand when you are a tiny few compared with the 5 million. You can't. The only way you can do it is the acquiescence to you, the few, of the 5 million. And that's what happened during COVID, with very honorable exceptions, with people who opposed it. But most people were one of group one or one of group two.
Yes.
And thus, what you had, staggeringly, you had a buffoon in Ardern, completely owned by this cult, who was imposing their will, her will, her master's will through her, upon the population of New Zealand. In Britain, you had an absolute buffoon called Boris Johnson, who was doing the same. You had buffoons in Trump and then Biden in America who were doing the same. How many people are in America? 350 million, maybe? And now the 350 million are being controlled by executive order signed by one bloke whose cognitive state is dismantling before our eyes. People say, what's the solution? Well, you are. We are. When we stop acquiescing to the few tyrants that are acting on behalf of the real tyranny in the shadows, when we stop doing that, it's over. As you say, in New Zealand, had people said, Jacinda, over here, thank you. Not doing it, darling, not doing it. Over, finished, kaput. But no, the vast numbers just acquiesce, and in doing so, create their own prison by that acquiescence. But there is well, it's all kind of involved in the same thing, really. That's if you like, that's a quote physical expression of non-cooperation. That's a physical expression of a transformation of consciousness and awareness. Because what you also have to do, if you're the few and you want to control the many, you have to diminish the perception of self-identity of the many. You have to get them to believe one of two things, basically: that they're just a human having the 70 years and 10, and then they disappear and into nothingness. They cease to exist. That's good. Yeah, that's a good idea. Or there is a God. And I'm not saying there's not an overall power. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this religious God. There is a God, and I'm subordinate to that God. And I have to do what that God tells me. And how do I know what that God wants? Because this bloke in a frock in front of me in the church or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple is going to tell me what God wants. And he's going to tell me that there are terrible consequences if I don't do what God wants. So in both cases, it's like, I'm just a human. I've come out of nowhere, some primordial soup, wasn't it, or something? And then I'll just have a little time, and then I've gone, and then it ceased to exist. Or I am subject. I'm just little hit me I'm submitting to some judgmental God. Why is it that the word Muslim means one who submits? Because that's what religion is, and not just bricks and mortar religion, but science religion, political religion, all of them. And when we stop doing that, when we start realizing that we're not human, human is a brief experience in a body we call human. What we are is consciousness, a state of being aware, ultimately connected to all consciousness out into infinity. But we have been isolated and separated through perceptual manipulation to believe that we are little me human. I have no power, do what I'm told. Well, God tells me what I have to do. So you become isolated. Your perception, your self-identity becomes, I'm little me. I'm subordinate to a God, or I don't know why I'm here. When we are consciousness, and as you expand your self-identity from I am Ethel on the checkout or Bill driving the bus to I am all that is, has been, and ever can be, having a brief human experience. What that does is your consciousness expands with your self-identity expansion, and you start to tap into levels of awareness, knowledge, knowing that are outside of the what I would call the simulation, the matrix that's been created to enslave us. And at that point, if you go far enough in your expansion, you go, oh, so that's what's going on. I can see it now. People have said to me over the years so many times, it's so obvious what's happening. Why didn't I see it before? Well, you didn't see it before because you were there. And now you're more here, you can start to see it. And that's what they don't want. And that is why we're getting down to it, why the sequence is getting faster and faster and faster towards a human artificial intelligence fusion. Because the idea is to attach artificial intelligence to the human brain, and then artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. It becomes what we think, and it becomes how we emotionally react. And don't take my word for it. The tech bros that have circled the wagons around Trump, just as I said they would before he came to office, they are telling you that. People like Ray Kurzweil at the Google executive, a so-called futurist, who was apparently has a great admirer called Bill Gates, has said years ago now that by 2030, humans will be connected, the brain will be connected to, quote, the cloud by artificial intelligence. And from that moment, he says, artificial intelligence will do more and more of human thinking until human thinking is negligible and deleted, basically. And so the reason that I'm so freaking vehement about what's going on is because we are heading there so fast. And the COVID fake vaccine is involved in this as well. And therefore, we have got to reevaluate both self-identity and our perception of reality dramatically quickly before the door finally slams shut. Because once artificial intelligence is doing your thinking for you, and in many it already is, we might get into that, then is artificial intelligence controlled by this force going to ask, who am I? Where is this place? What is this place? Who's running the world? To what end? Is it going to ask those questions? Of course not. We're just going to do what we're going to become automatons thanks to artificial intelligence. That's the idea. And, I look at the alternative media and I despair often, especially that part, not all of it by any means, but that part of it that gets all the algorithmic support and all the promotion, not least out of America. They are looking at the myopia. They're looking at the twigs.
Yes.
But they're not seeing the forest. And the forest is that human thought and human emotional reaction is in the process of being hijacked ongoing by artificial intelligence. In fact, they eulogize some of the key players who are advancing this agenda, like Elon Musk.
Tell me about your views on Elon.
Don't start me.
That was the most extraordinary, discursive, interesting, layered answer you just gave. There were so many points where I wanted to come in. One of them I will just pick up before you talk about Elon. I, in the last few days, decided to put up very brief posts questioning Trump. In fact, I said I've lost all faith in Trump. And I admitted that I was one of the ones sucked in. We've all been sucked in at different times. The nastiness that came back, the personal attack to each of them, I said, I'm happy on my page for you to come on and respectfully put out your views and give me your perspectives, and I'm happy to engage in a discussion. What I'm not willing to accept is that you come on and name call and degrade and diminish me because I hold a different worldview from you. And because I have at least the intelligence now, having made a mistake, to admit I've made a mistake, and to now question Trump and to say, I think this man is very dangerous. He is rushing in the control grid over all of us. And the nastiness that came back. So in preparing for talking with you tonight, I just, and I've done 5 years of this now, David, I'm in awe of you for being able to withstand the waves of abuse and degradation and inhumanity that you have had to put up with for 3 decades? For
36 years, yeah.
For simply standing up for humanity. How do you do it? Yeah, how do you do it?
It goes in one ear and out the other.
It's horrendous.
And you see, it's also about observing the world rather than getting caught in the drama of the world. Because what they're always doing, and this comes back to control of perception, they're always trying to hijack our attention, our focus. And if you fall for the drama of the world, then you're constantly having your attention hijacked and focused on different dramas. But if you take a step back and you look at it from an observer's point of view, it not only are you taking it in, you're taking more in, because once you get caught in the drama, the first thing that happens is you stop thinking straight. When you become the observer, you see things differently. Like, for instance, I can understand, having studied the manipulation of perception all these decades, why people are as they are. I mean, you've got people on the internet who are just bots, and fake logging names you don't know anything about. And a lot of them will be just targeting people because that's their job. But there are others who are basically, I feel sorry for them. They're caught in a perceptual prison that they can't get out of. Well, they can, but they choose not to. And one expression of that is just abusing anyone with a different opinion to them.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you don't come on and point out where you think, from your perspective, things are happening and how people are being manipulated. Okay, but you don't just all day, every day, just hurl abuse at people for the sake of it, which is what most of them do. And so, because you are observing rather than getting caught in the drama, then it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know from experience, it doesn't matter what people say about you, because they'll say something else tomorrow. I mean, the number of people that stop me in the street now who over the years have done the usual abuse and ridicule, who are saying, look, what's going on? What do you think is going on? Because they've, what happens is, you can see this coming, and you can see how it works, and thus see it coming, and you can see the signs of where the direction it's going. Or you can wait until you have just conscious mind confirmation of the fact the world's not like you thought it was. And what's happened more and more as they get closer to their goal is that happenings and events in the world have, COVID not least, have shown people in the conscious mind level, if you like, that actually the world's not like they thought it was. And so more and more people are starting to wake up to it. But the reason I wrote my latest book, The Roadmap, is because I saw people waking up to this. This was their kind of focus. I was waking up to that, waking up to that, waking up to that. What people, I would suggest, need to realize, that's why I wrote the book, is that all these different elements, all these different dots are all connected. They're all connected, every last one of them in the end. And it's only when you see that forest level of what's going on that the twigs start to make sense. Because before, the twigs were just random, isolated things, happenings, people. And at the forest level, you see they're all connected, and they're all connected to the direction the world's being taken.
By the few.
Yeah,
Actually,
by the few.
A former policeman, Dan Picknell, a friend of mine, wrote to me just the other day and said, I've just finished David Icke's latest book, The Roadmap, and it's absolutely amazing, Liz. So I can recommend it via his recommendation. But tell us a little bit more about The Roadmap and how it will help people at this juncture in human history when a lot of people are feeling a bit shaky.
Right. Well, I want to come to Musk eventually, but we will get there.
We'll get back there.
The thing is that the roadmap is laying out how it all connects, and that involves the nature of reality itself, what this reality is, because it's not what we think we're experiencing. It goes into the afterlife, because this matrix simulation has other frequency levels, other dimensions to it. And it goes into the fact that this non-human force is manipulating human society, and how it's doing it, why it's doing it. Now, the why is very, very relevant to why the world is as it is. I concluded a long time ago, actually, before Elon Musk even talked about it, that this world is a simulation. It's the equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. Very, very, very much more advanced, of course, but that's what it is. And what's really become so clear to me is that this technological explosion with computerization and artificial intelligence and the digital system and all that is actually a technological version of the very reality we're experiencing. They're mirrors of each other. So this matrix, this fake reality, is actually a field of information, actually fields of information, obviously. And it's the equivalent of Wi-Fi. If I said to people who knew nothing about computers that in this room, it's not, I don't do Wi-Fi, but in most rooms you would have Wi-Fi. So in this room is a field of radiation encoded with fantastic amounts of information. And if you get a bit of kit called a computer, you can get the computer to log in to that Wi-Fi field, and it can put on the screen in a completely different form the information in the Wi-Fi field. Now, people who knew nothing about computers would say, "You're freaking mad, mate. What are you talking about? Wi-Fi field? I can't see anything. Where is it?" But because now people know about Wi-Fi and they know about computers, when you say the same to them, they go, "Oh, yeah, of course. Everyone knows that, mate. Wi-Fi, computers. Yeah, of course." The only difference between "you're mad" and "of course everyone knows that" is knowledge. Yes. It just shows that if you can keep knowledge from people, then you can manipulate their sense of reality so easily, especially if they're closed-minded until some academic or scientist tells them it's possible. And suddenly, "Oh, yeah, it must be possible then." Well, work it out yourself, mate.
Yes, or some legacy media idiot who's just
exactly. So what you have, therefore, is the question. Well, okay, so there's a Wi-Fi field, yeah, and there's a computer, yeah, and the computer decodes the Wi-Fi field, yeah, okay. So where's the computer that decodes this then into the reality we think we're experiencing? Hello. This. I have been calling the human body a biological computer since the 1990s. And it is a biological computer. And that's an interesting thing. Biological. We think that biological is natural and that technological is human-made. Okay. So how do we know that? The only way you're going to really know that is if you have something that is absolutely, unquestionably natural to compare it with. But we don't have that. And I know from my own research over the years into this cult that they do not treat the biological as natural. They treat it as an advanced form of technology. And so we have a biological computer, and it is it's a software program. That's what it is. And it's encoded with what is necessary for it to exist in this reality. So people might say, "Well, that's crazy. What do you mean the body is a computer?" Well, when's the last time anyone remembers breathing? The last time they remember breathing is when they were out of breath. Otherwise, they just breathe, or something breathes for them. They don't stop and focus on digesting food they just eaten. The body digests it. The body goes into a room that's cold and will adjust. It goes into a room that's hot and it will adjust. There's phenomenal tweaks going on all the time in the human body that we are not consciously in any way aware of, because it's a software program, a biological software program. And what I'm saying, which kind of becomes relevant to what I said earlier, is that the software program also contains psychological programs. In other words, if we do not bring consciousness into the perceptual equation, then the body program is thinking for us and it's having emotional reactions for us, which are encoded in the body. For instance, there's an area of the brain at the back here called by scientists the reptilian brain, or the R complex. And that's where we get the fight or flight response from. That's where we get road rage from. The reptilian brain is constantly scanning the environment for threats to survival, not just physical survival, but survival of relationships, survival of a job, survival of paying the rent at the end of the month. And that's just one group of examples of how the psychological program is playing through the biological computer. And when you open yourself to the true I, the eternal I, consciousness, which the body program is there to exclude, then you start to override the body program. And this is what we call awakening. And this is how we start to see the world differently to the body program. So then you look at the decoding of the matrix sequence. And we are interacting with this matrix field of fields of information. And it's interactive. So it is affecting our perceptions. But just as when you post on the internet, you're affecting the internet in some way, your awakening to consciousness also impacts upon the field of the matrix. You're changing it every time you awaken. It's another reason why they want us to keep staying asleep. So the way we interact with this matrix field is through the five senses, and they all work the same. The ears are a classic example. The ears are tapping in to frequency information, what we call sound waves. So I'm talking now, but no words are passing between us. What's passing between us is a vibrational field of information generated by my vocal cords. And the ears pick up those sound waves. They turn them into electrical information. This is mainstream science now. They communicate it to the brain. And there's different parts of the brain that decode the different senses. And then the brain puts together what is actually a holographic, illusory physical version of perception of the world. And if you know that, if you're in this cult inner circle and you know that, and you keep that from the population, well, you're in a phenomenal state of power straight away. So this means that although we, and I grant you it seems like that, we are living in an external reality where the world is around us, it's actually in here. And is that so fantastic where is the computer decoding the Wi-Fi field? Inside the computer. We're just observing on the screen what's going on inside the computer. And like I say, it's extraordinary to watch how this technological so-called revolution is mirroring the very way that we experience reality. And if we then come round to why this matrix has been created by this nefarious force, and what's the point of it? Well, there is a point. This is mainstream science again. Every time we think and every time we feel emotion, we are generating a frequency.
Energy. Yes.
People call it vibes, or got good vibes from him, got bad vibes from her. Because although we can't see the vibes, we can feel them on some level. So you are giving out frequencies based on your mental and emotional state, frequency patterns. And they are very, very different when compared with the different emotions and the different thoughts. So joy and love and peace and contentment and balance are high frequencies, high fast frequencies. That's why when people are in a high state, an up state, they say things like, "Oh, I feel so light today." Why? Because you are generating frequencies with your state of being, your state of perception, that are vibrating the field around you in very fast. So it appears to be, "Oh, I feel so light." But when people say, "Oh, I feel so heavy today," when they're in a low frequency state, emotional, mental state, that is because the low frequencies are related to the frequencies of fear, major one, of the reptilian brain generates the fear, by the way, to a large extent. They are generating anxiety, depression, resentment, regret, hatred, conflict, war in all its forms. These are low, slow frequencies that we're giving off. Some people say, "Oh, I feel so heavy today." And this force is feeding off human energy. It's feeding off a particular type of human energy, that low vibrational type, which some people have given the term louche to. And so suddenly it dawns why the world is as it is. Because this force has, through its global cult, not least, of manipulating world events, has no interest in a world of love, of joy, of peace, of contentment, of balance, of harmony. It wants a world that generates the low frequency emotional and mental energy that it feeds off and gets sustenance from and power from. And so you have this matrix, this closed system, or closed if we submit to it, and you have this global cult in this human reality that is serving that non-human force. And it serves it by constantly generating situations, societies, events that are designed to trigger and generate low frequency energy. I mean, think of the First World War, think of the Second World War, think of the Great Depression between them, think of what's happened in Gaza since October the 7th, think of what's been happening in Iran and other countries that Iran responds to with missiles in the last few weeks. How much, quote, louche has been created, which they feed off. And there's this scene in the first Matrix movie where the Morpheus character holds up a battery and says, "The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to turn humans into this." And that was a profound truth in an apparently fictional movie, because that's what we're doing.
The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop. Let me out. Let me out! I want out!
And so we are basically in a fish tank being prodded all the time to generate all these low vibrational frequencies, which this force is feeding off. And that's why when you go into this expanded, more expanded state of awareness, you start to become the observer and you don't get pulled into the drama. Because what does the drama do? Generates loosh. Oh my God, have you heard the latest? Oh my God. Exactly what we're supposed to do instead of calmly observing and not getting caught in the dramas that are put before us constantly.
It makes so much sense. And then on top of that, I don't know if you've read many books of near-death experiences, but they're very liberating.
Yes, endless.
Very liberating. And one of the reasons I knew early on I could never take that jab was because I'd had pericarditis and I was 24 hours from my heart shutting down. And in that experience, I won't go into the full detail, but I remember floating away from the earth, David, and looking down and seeing all those squabbling humans, how horrible that place is. And it was actually only because my children at that moment appeared in front of me and there was a giant pull. There was a giant dilemma for me. I wanted to leave the earth, but I loved them enough to come back. And I knew I needed to come back for love. So when you talk about those emotions of love and fear, I once heard that every emotion we feel goes back to those two. So if it's anger, it goes back to fear. Anger is always a response to a fear. Or if it's joy, it goes back to love. So we are in this deeply dichotomous universe, aren't we, or world. And the next step is to understand we are being farmed. If they can get us into fear, they can farm us. So then we flip the whole situation we're in now with all of these fears coming at us from every direction, it feels some days, to say, I can use this earthly journey to refine my own personal understanding and my own personal mastery of my emotional world. In a way, is that what you're saying there, David?
Yeah, because, people can think, okay, if you don't get pulled into the drama, then you don't care enough. Yeah. But that's not true. You're just aware that getting caught in the drama is exactly what this force, this cult wants you to do. So you don't do it. Everybody gets pulled in a bit, but you very quickly think, I'm being pulled in, and you withdraw again. And you are deciding with a clear mind rather than a stop thinking straight mind.
Yes.
To how you can best respond.
A clear mind, not a fear mind. That's a good one.
Yeah, and so it is a case of taking control of your mental and emotional state from seeing what the situation is. You see, if you don't realize what I've just explained, then you will get caught in the drama because you'll think you need to. And I completely understand that. I understand why people look at what's happening in Gaza over the last few years, and they are appalled by it, and they're disgusted by it, and they are furious at it, and all that. But that's what this force wants. That's why it sets these things up. One of the reasons it sets these things up. But instead of, I'll tell you what the process that I go through. I look at something and I think that I don't like, and I say, how can I best make a difference to this? Nice. And what I can do is get caught in the drama of it and then respond through the drama with more drama.
Yes.
Or I can look at it and I can say, how can I best make a difference here? Well, I can best make a difference by, first of all, understanding what's going on and why that's happening. And I can best make a difference by just informing as many people as possible what's going on and why that's happening.
Yes.
And you can do that without getting pulled into the drama, because my approach is always, if I get caught in the emotion of something, will it make that something any better if I do? And if the answer is no, then what's the point? What's the point in you getting pulled into the drama of some horror and emotionally reflecting that, if you getting caught in that drama will not affect the drama? There's no point. We just need to stay one step back and think, how can I best affect this, rather than getting pulled into it with all the all the louche potential of doing so. And it's not that you don't care. My God, I wouldn't have done what I've done for 36 years if I didn't care. But
Yes.
you don't get pulled into where they want you to get pulled into. So you can, it's like you can say that Trump is imbecilic. You can say that Trump is a malignant narcissist, but you don't do it out of hatred for Trump. You don't do it with that
Yes.
energy of hatred. You're just making a point.
Yes.
The guy is being mentally dismantled and is making decisions that are insane. That's what you can see from your observation. But you don't do it with hatred. I hate Trump. I hate that Trump. Because all you're doing is producing the very energy that they want you to produce. They want you to hate Trump. What they want, because this world, the way the Matrix is set up is as a duality. So if you look at, say, electricity, it has polarities. And this matrix is based on electricity and electromagnetism. That's its foundation form. So what it wants all the time is two sides at war with each other, or two sides interacting with each other. So to this consciousness behind the matrix, to have people doing something that's unpleasant and having people resist people that are doing something unpleasant, that creates the electrical circuit. That's what they want, because they got loose here and they got loose here, right? Instead, I would say, just my opinion, that the approach is taking a step back, observing, and calmly refusing to cooperate with what's being done that you don't like. So, for instance, if someone comes out of Downing Street or the New Zealand Parliament or the White House and says, we've had a discussion and this is what we've decided is going to happen, what you can do is resist that in the sense of anger and fury and, posts on the internet. Yeah, well, can they do this? It's outrageous and all this stuff. Or you can calmly say, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. What you're telling us to do, we're not doing it. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to become a louche producer. You just say, sorry, not doing it. And if enough people say, we're not doing it, that can't be done, because this is the revelation. Authority has no power.
Yes.
This other dimensional force, this cult, in and of itself, has no power. The power that they use against us is the power we give to them second by second, every day. And one of the things that we do to give that power away is voting. So if you've got two cheeks on the same backside called the left party or the right party, then it doesn't matter who you vote for, as they used to say in America years ago when I was there. It doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. And if you look at the way the world has unfolded, it's gone in the same direction. It might have gone at slightly different speeds, and it might have gone with slightly different excuses, but it's gone in the same direction.
Yes.
Constantly. Whoever's in power, left or right. So what you're doing is, this is how it works. Politicians, first of all, have got to get their natural constituency mentality to vote for them. So in an election campaign, are they going to tell you what they're really going to do? No, they're going to tell you what you want to hear so that you will vote for them. But there's no contract between the political parties and the population that says, if we say we're not going to do this and we are going to do that, then we have to not do it and do it. There's no contract. And okay, circumstances change and all right, but overwhelmingly, there's no contract. Therefore, they tell you what you want to hear. Oh, I'll vote for him. I'm going to vote for Trump. He's against war. And then they get in. Now they don't need you anymore. And they do what they were going to do all along, what the cult is telling them to do, basically. And so then you voted for Party A. Yeah, I like them. Okay, so what do you think now? They're in power. Whoa, yeah. Have you seen what they're doing?
Yes.
So how do I get rid of them? Well, you vote for Party B. Oh, thank you. That's a good idea. I'll vote for Party B. So Party B gets into power. What do you think of them now? Whoa, they're doing the same as the other lot. Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah. So how are you going to get rid of Party B? Well, I've got to vote for Party A again. And so it goes on round and round and round and round. It's a trap.
Yeah.
And
theatre. It's theatre.
Instead, it's like, no, I'm not voting. I'm not voting until my vote matters, right? So I'm not voting. What I'm not going to do also is cooperate with the left or the bloody right when they are seeking to enslave me and my family and my country. I'm not going to cooperate with it. Yes. And suddenly, where's the power? Oh, yeah, well, we've decided this is going to happen. Not doing it, mate. Not doing it. There you go. Over. Finish overnight. So they need the divide and rule. They need the political ideologies that are all ultimately controlled by the same force to get the divide and rule necessary to stop that unity of, we're not doing it. You're trying to enslave us. We're not doing it. And until that happens, they'll get what they want. When it happens, the house of cards comes down.
Gosh, it's fascinating. You know, I stood 11 weeks out from the last election in New Zealand, and we ended up being the largest small party. I mean, it was irrelevant because so many of our votes, I am certain, were given away. There was much cheating when I went to the Electoral Commission. I mean, he just shrugged his shoulders when I said, I have evidence. I have a recording showing that you were harvesting votes from people with dementia. And the head of the Electoral Commission just went, oh, well, you know, nothing we can do. And I went, this whole system is so broken. So I went public and said, you know what? Voting doesn't work for us, for the people. We're going to get a people's movement and make it 1 million strong. Now, a group came in who were saboteurs, I think, for the government and tried to steal it. And it was just all awful. It was just, you know, politics at its very worst. But I know the government was threatened by the idea and by me doing this because I had lawfare cases, I had threats of jail for the Barry Young data. I had, you know, they cancelled the bank account, of course. They came on every level, including a group of saboteurs who insulted me for 10 months. And you look at that and think, how will anybody ever get someone decent and real into politics. You have to be such an endemic game player to get in, David. The system is broken beyond repair. So I'm starting to think you're right. We turn our backs and we say, don't want your system. I will not vote in your system. You might end up with a tiny number of votes and we can all laugh you out of office. Maybe that is the way. Maybe that is the way.
The other way of voting for Party A and then Party B and then Party A and then Party B has got us here. So definitely another direction is necessary. But let's just look at the structure of politics. What you had before politics of the party type was monarchs. Unfortunately, you still have a monarch. We still have a monarch in Britain, and Australia still have a monarch. Canada still have a monarch, and the Commonwealth still have a monarch. I mean, a grotesque family that I have exposed at great length over the years in the books.
You've done an extraordinary job, and there's a hashtag, not my king. Boy, Charles, he's not my king. You've done a great job exposing this.
Absolutely. Is it an accident? Is it really an accident that King Charles, when Prince Charles was a close friend from the 60s onwards to his death in 2011 of Jimmy Savile, the notorious mega paedophile who was invited into the inner bosom of the royal family in the 1960s, even though he was just a disc jockey, by a guy who was a known paedophile. There are FBI documents to support that, called Lord Mountbatten. Lord Mountbatten, who is acknowledged as the mentor of Prince Charles and Prince Philip. What was lost in the Jimmy Savile story that I documented in great length in a book called The Perception Deception is that Jimmy Savile was not just a mega pedophile, not just a necrophiliac. He liked sex with dead bodies. That's why he famously volunteered as a porter at a Leeds hospital. It gave him access to the mortuary. This is the mentality we're dealing with. This is the mentality running the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But he was also someone who procured children for the rich and famous. That's how he got away with his paedophilia for so long, even though the police knew about it. And the royal family didn't know about it. The police knew about it. Are you kidding? But no, he was... he had his back watched because he was procuring children for the rich and famous. And he was in the inner circle of the British royal family. And then suddenly King Charles sends Prince Andrew, as was, off to Norfolk and exiles him in Norfolk because of his connections to Epstein. Oh, we can't have that. No, it's not you can't have it, Charlie boy. It's that it's a danger to your continued existence as a monarchy. So therefore, you do what's necessary to put him as arm's length. What was Andrew involved with Epstein? Well, of course he was. But you were involved with Jimmy Savile, mate, weren't you? All right. I mean, it's a joke. And these people are they are heads of state in multiple countries. What are we doing? What are we doing accepting this? So you had the monarchy, and there came a point when enough people around the world had reached a state of maturity where they weren't having it anymore. They weren't having royal rule by who had sex with who in what order. They were not having it. And so the cults looking at this and saying, okay, we got to replace this with something that also suits us. And so they created political parties. And political parties are pyramids, like almost everything in this reality is structure. You create a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramids, of left or right, doesn't matter, you have that which dictates the pyramid. So you want to become a member of parliament, say, and you then have to persuade the local constituency party, in this country anyway, that you should be selected as their candidate. To do that, you have to support and repeat the policies and the approach of the party hierarchy, the top of the pyramid, because they're dictating to the pyramid. And all right, you might get selected to run for parliament. If you win and you want to get into government, then you have to go on following the diktats and supporting with votes, even though you might not agree with it, what the party hierarchy is dictating. And so what you've got is at the top of these left-right parties who have any chance of forming a government, you've got this hierarchy that is dictating the entire pyramid.
Yes.
And then you go one step back in the shadows, and this hierarchy and that hierarchy answer to the same force. And we what they want us to do is to give our power away to the cheeks on the same backside, so that they, for the next 4 or 5 years, can do what the cult wants them to do. And this is what has been happening all along. And so this is the A-B voting sequence, where the same force is in power no matter if you vote for A or B. And this is why the direction of the world has continued to be the same, even though apparently different parties have been in government. And so we can go on doing that, and we can follow the Pied Piper to the edge of the AI cliff, or we can say, I think another approach is necessary here because that approach has not worked. And that is saying to the Pied Piper, sorry, mate, not doing it. You know this path that you're leading us to the river or to the cliff edge. We know where it leads, mate, and we're not following you no more. So you play your little pipe, you blow into your little pipe, and you walk along your path to the edge of the cliff and look around, and there's going to be no one following you. And that's the end of the power of the Pied Piper. No power anymore. But until we do that and suss that the system is there to get us to give our power away to the few, the Pied Piper will go on leading to the edge of the cliff.
Oh, it's fascinating. I was a friend, Nikki, wrote to me today and said, aren't you on, it was basically, she's a nice woman. She said, aren't you on Team Trump anymore? I thought you were with us, and I went, well, I always try to apply critical thinking. And I said,
does anyone think that Trump relates to us in any way?
Not at all.
Or Ardern or Starmer or any of them?
None of them. And I said to her, think of Trump like the Pied Piper. But they do. They lead us to the edge of the cliff. If we don't follow them, the system falls away. And then what do we have? Because nature abhors a vacuum. We have a void. Is it what I said in that election? I said all the way through the last election, I'll get into power and I will decentralize as quickly as possible back to local villages. So we have only a few people in the centralized parliament. This was my vision. And maybe coordinating the roading and maybe the hospitals, but everything else can be decided at a community level. And if your local mayor who heads that community is not doing what he's promised you, you can abuse him in the cafe by saying, you get out there. I've put you in that job. I'm paying you to do the job. You get out there and do it today, or else I'll get you out of office. Is that the only way human society can really feasibly run without this giant rort being run on us to break the matrix?
Yeah. Well, that's very, very interesting what you say there, because that's been my view for even long before I I started on this path consciously in 1990. The thing is that, okay, you can look for a solution, and I'm not interested in solutions, because solutions invariably lead to more problems in need of more solutions. That's the round and round the garden again. My approach is looking at the cause of the problem you don't want and removing the cause. Because if you remove the cause, the problem must disappear because its cause is gone. And so then you look at the cult agenda, and you look at what we think we know about human history, and you see the sequence, and the sequence is obviously the problem because it's led us to where we are. So what is the sequence? It's the constant centralization of power. Because at every stage you centralize power, the fewer are having more power over the many. So there was a time when humans organized themselves into tribes, not least because of transportation problems, etc. And they, in the tribe, decide what the tribe was going to do. Then there came a really pivotal moment on this sequence when lots of tribes were brought together to form what were called nations. Now, a few people at the center of the nation are dictating to all the former tribes that form the nation. Then you move into the European Union, for instance, where the nations are brought together under a central control, not least by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. You then start to see the amalgamation of countries through things like the BRICS grouping and other groupings, the groupings that are called NATO and all these other groupings. What you're doing is you're on a journey of constantly centralizing power. And what they want in the end is a world government, actually an unelected world government, a technocracy, dictating to every community on the planet. That's what they want via a AI hive mind, which I write about in the roadmap. So the problem, if you're looking at how the few control the many, is the constant centralization of power. Yes. I mean, what happens in New Zealand is no longer decided in New Zealand. It's decided elsewhere. And the further you make decisions away from the people affected by those decisions, the worse those decisions become for the people affected by those decisions, because you have no input into them. You have no consequences for the decisions you make. I mean, there's people in the European Union, bureaucrats, making decisions about countries they've never even been to, never mind know about. And so if you're looking at the cause of the problem, it's the centralization of power. So removing the cause of the problem is you decentralize power. And for me, there should be a complete inversion of the current situation, whereby power is held by the local community and is devolved only on the basis of coordination to the national government. So the national government becomes a coordinator of like you say, transportation, whatever. But it is subordinate in its power to the local community. So suddenly the local community is making decisions that affect the local community. And as you quite rightly say, that means whoever is appointed to administer and follow the diktats of the community in some form of community power has to face the people constantly that he's having some influence on. And if he's not doing the job that they want, well, he's on his bike. And you only devolve power to a higher level on the basis of coordination. I have no problem with a global bodies coordinating between different countries. So there's a way that you can give your opinion on the global situation. The problem comes when the power at the higher level is able to dictate to the lower level what happens, because that's what's happened and systematically, and that's why we've got where we are. You now have the actions of Donald Trump, which are really the actions of the people that control Donald Trump, that are having this massive gathering impact on every community on Earth.
Yes.
Because of the way that the energy supplies are being affected by his actions and Israel's actions. And where is the United Nations? Where are these bodies that's supposed to be about peace? Where are they? Silent. And they're silent because their job is not to stop what is happening, it's to facilitate it. Oh, yes, you might have the UN Secretary General saying, oh, no, this is wrong, we shouldn't be happening. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Well, nothing really, but I will condemn it. Oh, yeah, so it still goes on then. And where is Capitol Hill in America? The House of Representatives and the Senate.
Yes.
Where are they? They've just allowed Trump to do what he bloody likes, and Israel to do what they like. So is that connected? Oh, yes, to the fact that Israel funds vast numbers of American politicians of both parties through an organization called AIPAC, which is simply a foreign lobby group in America funding the people that choose to pledge allegiance to Israel into office. So you have, this is funny, this, Liz. Well, it's funny. It's kind of not funny, but it's funny, not ha-ha, but oh, God. You've got Chuck Schumer, who is the leader of the Democrats in the Senate.
Another one with pedophilic tendencies, and there is visual imagery on that. It's disgusting.
And Chuck Schumer is owned by Israel. He's an ultra-Zionist. And people have said in the Democratic arena, why is Chuck Schumer not doing more to stop Trump? Well, because he's owned by the same people that Trump's owned by. That's why. And this is what makes the whole, are you going to vote for this time, so irrelevant. And we have to go down another route. And that route is A, non-cooperation with our own enslavement. It's over overnight if we did that in unity. And also to devolve power from the center to communities so that people decide in their own community what happens in that community and not having it dictated from afar by people who've never been to that community. That's what happens now. And that's why the few have always controlled the many.
I love the idea of any leader has to get into the office. Our current corrupted Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, has to go into his office in Wellington and put on overalls. And it has to say all of the people, funding him. So AIPAC here and, all of the land developments, property developments. Even if we did devolve it back to the community, if the property developers get in, you have to say which property developers are funding you, and you have to wear that around your community every day. So we go, oh yeah, you're like a racing car driver, but we know who your first loyalty is towards. Or
The other
else
thing
we stop
too,
the outside funding. But that may be impossible. If you admit it, we can see, oh, you'd have a bias. Of course you would, because it's worn on your overalls, your work outfit. Yeah, what were
yeah.
you
Well,
going to say?
you are when you're devolving power to communities, the people in the communities, they don't need the same amount of money to run for office.
That's a good
and
point.
and
Yeah.
because you're dealing with a smaller area, and what you say
Yes.
is that there is going to be no private funding of politicians, none. If that
Brilliant.
means that the community has to cough up the brass for people to run for office, okay, well, let's do it. But they're not going to be funded by self-interest groups. It's not going to happen. And you can
Brilliant.
keep, if you devolve power to communities, you are able then to make sure that those people are not funded by external operations. First of all, if they are, they automatically get ejected from office. And secondly, that, in a community, it's much harder to hide who's funding you, even if it's surreptitious. Whereas at the national level, I mean, anything bloody goes. I mean, look at Trump. Trump was massively funded, not least by Elon Musk, massively funded by the tech AI people. Your Thiels and your Andreessens and your David Sachs, who's his AI czar.
Zuckerberg sucking up to him, Gates rushing
all
to the
these
White
people.
House. Yep.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos, all of them.
Mm.
And what he's done, having been funded into office by billionaires, is to, first of all, give massive tax cuts to billionaires, but also facilitate their AI agenda. This is what happens. It's pay for play. And the only way you stop that is by making it impossible, or at least illegal, to be funded by interest groups, private interest groups. It's ludicrous that happens. Does anyone think that you're going to get massive amounts of money from an interest group, and in power you're not going to benefit the interest group? Why do you think that interest group is funding you in the first place?
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's actually brilliant. I had not thought that if you keep it small, you need fewer funds, and the community will chip in, because now the community is engaged, because the community knows they will be listened to and honoured, which we know at the moment. No one in our central government will honour the people of New Zealand. We now come nicely to the segue into Elon Musk, and maybe you better take a sip before you begin, because I'm very interested to hear your views on Elon. He is like so many of them. He has a certain charm. He'll say some things that really appeal, and you think, oh, he is on our side, and then he'll go completely against any kind of freedom. So let's have a little sip, and off we go.
Well, first of all, he's not on our side.
He's not.
He's a cult operative. The idea that he's running all those companies is laughable. I quote in the roadmap a whistleblower who's taken him to court, describing him as a monster, who worked for Tesla at quite a high level. And she said that he only turned up at Tesla about once a fortnight. Didn't see him otherwise. So there's no way he's running these companies. He's a front man. He's a sales pitcher. He's the fake genius, because he is a fake genius. Or other people are doing it all and using him as a front man. So let's look at his history. Well, let's go back to Canada in the 1930s. and a bloke called Joshua Haldeman, who was Musk's grandfather. He ran an operation with which also went into America, called technocracy. And technocracy wanted an end to elected politicians. This is the agenda. This is why they put so many morons in power, because they want people to reject elected politicians. So he was pushing the technocracy, which is the end of elected politicians and government by appointed technocrats, bureaucrats, and, quote, experts, who are almost always not. And in the 1930s, technocracy and Haldeman produced a map of a technate, which they, because the idea is you have a world government, and then you have different regions of the world that answer to the world government, big regions. And so he produced a map, Haldeman and technocracy, of the technate they wanted for the Americas. And it starts in the South, with in actually the north of South America, with Venezuela and Colombia. It then goes up through Panama and Central America into Mexico, in the United States, obviously, and then into Canada. And the top of the technate in the 1930s is Greenland, which is kind of extraordinary given what Trump is talking about and has been talking about, though he never mentioned it in the election campaign since he came to office. He's also talking now about taking over Cuba, and Cuba was in the Haldeman technate, and he is now so blockaded energy sources to Cuba that the lights are going out, and the electricity system is breaking down on the way to just moving it and taking it over. So that's one hell of a coincidence. So Haldeman then was not very popular in Canada with the Canadian government, not least because he was a supporter of Hitler in Germany. And he up sticks and goes to South Africa. And the reason he went to South Africa is because he was a big supporter, Joshua Haldeman, of apartheid. So he goes to South Africa, and his daughter, May Musk, eventually gives birth to Elon Musk. Elon Musk was brought up in a family that was very rich, well documented, and was very much benefiting from the apartheid system. Just before Musk was due to be conscripted into the South African army for a period, as they all were in those days, he up sticks to Canada, thanks to his parental background, and then moves into America. And if you look at Elon Musk's background, it's in business, he's a total con man. Oh, yeah, that Elon Musk, he started Tesla. No, he didn't. He never founded Tesla at all. He came in later and then ousted the founders and claimed to be the founder when he wasn't even nearly the founder.
That's the Zuckerberg. That's the Zuckerberg playbook too. That's Mark Zuckerberg. He did a similar thing.
Well, this is how it works. So then you have SpaceX. This is the official story. Musk flew to Russia with a CIA operative to negotiate buying intercontinental missiles. I mean, go figure. That didn't happen. And on the way back, he tells the CIA operative that he's going to start SpaceX, and he wants this operative to be his basically chief. The operative did not accept the job. Instead, he took a job with the CIA and a part of the CIA known as InQtel or IQT, which seed funds companies and startups that are producing technology that could benefit the surveillance and control agenda of the CIA. He then, while in that period, InQtel seed funded the creation of Palantir of Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, both steering committee members of the Bilderberg Group, a massive globalist operation, while funding the career of J.D. Vance. I mean, you can't make it up. So
yes, that dropped out then, interestingly, right at that point, while funding the career of J.D. Vance. That's
I mean, soon as a list appeared of potential running mates for Trump in 2024, and J.D. Vance was on the list, I said to people, it's J.D. Vance, he's going to get it. And he got it. Of course he got it, because he's a gopher for Peter Thiel. So this CIA operative then becomes head of NASA. And when he becomes head of NASA, suddenly massive contracts start to be handed to SpaceX, which at the time had never built a single bloody rocket. And so Musk's not running SpaceX. He's fronting up SpaceX. It's a NASA cult operation. So he goes on, and then, of course, Trump had his assassination attempt. Excuse me if I doubt that it was genuine, but immediately within an hour or so of that assassination attempt, I say it was all coordinated, Musk comes out supporting Trump for the presidency, followed by these other tech oligarch people in the gang. And Musk eventually gave about $250 to $300 million to Trump for his election campaign. But before that, and very relevant to that, he had been allowed to buy Twitter, now X. And I'd been tracking Musk for a long time before that. And I knew he was a cult operative. So when it started appearing that Musk was going to buy Twitter, I thought, this is a scam. It's just a matter of finding out exactly what form the scam takes. And it didn't take long. So before Musk, Twitter, it's well acknowledged, I know because I was thrown off it, was dictating, or the cult through Twitter was dictating who was allowed on it, who wasn't, what was allowed to be said and what wasn't. Musk, when he bought Twitter, he then released these so-called Twitter files in which he said this shows that Twitter, before me, was dictating who could and could not be on and who could say what and what they couldn't say. Okay. Right. So first of all, it wasn't only Musk that bought Twitter. It was a load of other people who have quite demonstrably, like people from Saudi Arabia, absolutely no interest whatsoever in freedom of speech. And second, Elon, you say that Twitter, before you bought it, was owned by the deep state, as you call it, and was dictating what could and could not be said. Yeah. So what you're saying then is the deep state had Twitter exactly where it wanted it. Well, yeah. So why did they bloody sell it to you then? A self-proclaimed free speech absolutist who isn't really or anything like. Why did they sell it to you? I've asked that question so many times since he bought it. No one's given me a credible answer. So
I would say it's theatre, so that we believe in him more.
Exactly. So what I saw, because I've been doing this since before the alternative media existed. It was just a few disparate individuals for a long time. There was no alternative media after 9/11. But I was watching the way that the emerging alternative media looked on Musk, and it was with skepticism. They were saying, "Oh, no, he's a transhumanist. He wants AI and all this stuff." And then, after he bought Twitter, I saw all that disappear. Oh, no, he's one of us now. Good old Elon. And all he's done is allow some people back. But he's allowed people back because he's got to feed his "I'm one of you" image. But what he does, and what he does was summed up perfectly by Linda Yaccarino, the CEO he appointed as head of X, when she said that X is about freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And that if you see something, or if you want to see something on X that is lawful but awful, who decides awful? They do. Then you're going to find it very difficult to find it. And this is how they've done. This is what they've done. First of all, Musk's algorithms are on absolutely full blast. If he wants to push an agenda, he can push it himself and get massive views, tens of millions sometimes of views, millions of views as a matter of course, because his algorithm is circulating it. And all he's got to do, if someone else posts something that he wants to push because it's his agenda, then all he's got to do is repost that with a "whoa" or an "interesting," and that's all he has to write, and it will get tens of millions of views.
It's a perfect setup.
He also has a series of people, and if you follow them, you can see who they are, that are Musk groupie sycophants who are pushing his agenda. And he often reposts them for the same reason I talked about. Now, those people who this is an interesting thing, Liz. This I made myself very unsupported, shall we say, when I was posting throughout the 2024 Trump election campaign, as I did before when he ran in 2016, that he was a con artist, that he was telling them what they wanted to hear, and then he would do something different in office, and B, he was going to facilitate the AI agenda when he got into office, because it was obvious he was going to win. And I got untold abuse for that. But though, and what they call shadow banned, in other words, the algorithm for what I was saying, which was not the Musk agenda, was turned way down. So currently I have 822,000 people following my X page, but the vast majority never see what I post, or not, or most of what I post anyway, because of the algorithm. So I was talking about Trump and what he was, but those who were supporting Trump, including people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Russell Brand, and many others, Alex Jones, were getting big algorithmic support for posting anything. Another guy called Ian Carroll was another guy who was algorithmically boosted, and they were promoting Trump. Then when Trump gets into power and gets that sequence going where he was doing everything he told people he wouldn't do, like invade Iran and etc., a number of these people turned against him. But they turned against him still with the algorithm on full or a massive, and they still get massive numbers even though they turned against him. While people who are saying the same as they're saying are being shadow banned. They were shadow banned when those people were pushing Trump during the 2024 period, and they're getting shadow banned now for continuing to expose people who were pro-Trump, getting big algorithmic support, are now anti-Trump, are still getting the same algorithmic support, even though they're saying nothing different to those that are getting shadow banned. And you go, what the hell is going on here? Because this absolutely doesn't seem right. And doesn't seem, shall we say, organic. And the other thing about Musk, he said some years ago, because he was positioning himself, these people play the long game. He said, AI could be the end of humanity. We could be summoning the demon.
Yes, I remember.
And it was like, what he said was, I'm very worried about AI and what it could do. Now, what he's doing is appealing to that pushbacker mentality in the alternative media and those that follow the alternative media that were very skeptical about AI. So he's put himself in their camp. But what has he done since? He's become the biggest promoter of AI dystopia. And this was the point. See, what you've got with this AI agenda is you've got what I call the hard sellers of AI. These are your Ray Kurzweils, your Bill Gateses for a long time, your Klaus Schwabs. And
Palantir is rolling out a control grid with the White House imprimatur. Yes,
exactly.
Palantir.
So what you have is the hard sell, and the hard sell says, we connect and fuse with AI, will be gods. It's the next stage of human evolution, right? That's for people that will buy that shite. But you've got your pushbackers and your skeptics, and you want them and all. You've got to get them on board as well. So you bring on AI skeptic Elon Musk. And what does he say eventually? He says, I'm very worried about AI, but it's inevitable. And inevitable is a very powerful mind control word, because if you want to stop something, you will work to stop it. Once you think it's inevitable and unstoppable, you then go into the mode not of stopping it, but of mitigating its effect as best you can. There's a dilution of your approach. So he says it's inevitable that AI is going to take over and become far more intelligent than humans. And therefore, we have to fuse with AI or humans will die out. Elon, can I just summarize this? The hard sell from these characters is that we must fuse with AI, right? Yeah. And you're saying we must, because we'll be gods. You're saying we must fuse with AI, otherwise humans will die out, yeah? Yeah. So what's the common theme between you and them? Humans fusing with artificial intelligence. It's a scam. And what X has been turned into, if you watch it all the time, is a vast propaganda arm for the AI agenda. He's not saying it could be the end of humanity anymore. No, he's pushing it like crazy. And you know what I see? Oh, dear. Shakes his head, can't believe it. I see people who should know better saying, is this true, Grok? What does Grok think? Grok being, for those who aren't on X, Musk's AI operation.
AI. Yeah.
So they're now, these are people that are aware of the AI agenda, but what does Grok think? Who gives a shit what Grok thinks? Grok will think whatever it's programmed to think, mate.
Yes.
And what are we doing? But what it is, it's a version of mission creep. It's agenda creep.
Yes. You
just make people more and more associated, more familiar with the AI takeover, and you suck them in instead of going, sorry, not having it. I'm not going to get pulled into your AI dystopia by asking Grok anything. But they do. And what they're doing is, and of course, Musk now says he wants literally billions of robots around.
Yes.
Why? Why do you need a bloody robot? Why do you need billions of robots? Because if you AI, digitize, and technologically control the entire system, it means that the few can control the many on a scale never seen before in known human history. You can control them right down to dictating what they think and feel. And therefore, it's your perfect scenario for total human control. And Elon Musk, he's a gopher, but he's high enough in the hierarchy to know exactly that is the game. That is the agenda. He's a con man. And anyone that eulogizes him has completely lost the bloody plot. because he wants your mind, ladies and gentlemen, or he wants your mind on behalf of those that have his mind.
That is such a summary. And that is an argument to get yourself off X. Don't go on it for large tracts of every day, because what I've just realized listening to you, David, is there is an element of slow or possibly very rapid brainwashing happening with what the algorithms are allowing to reinforce. This is inevitable when it's not inevitable at all. And when most of us who are still thinking humans are going, I never gave permission to these unelected world leaders to flood us with AI and robots. Interestingly, I was interviewing Dr. Robert Chandler, who worked with Naomi Wolf on the Pfizer data and is now working with Albert Benavides, and they're doing a great job on the VAERS database, which is the subject of the interview. But Robert was saying when he puts it through Grok, it's clearly biased. Like the information will come out, it is safe and effective. The Pfizer jabs are safe and effective. If he compares it with Claude, which is a more independent one at this stage, it comes out with a much fairer piece of information. And I just put that in here to warn people. Grok is programmed. Grok has a bias already. So don't unconditionally accept anything, especially from AI.
Well, let me just give you a little background in the work I've been using AI for, because I'm probably into 9 months, and I use it 6-7 hours a day. But it's required training myself as well as the platform to do what I want it to do. If you've had any experience with computer programming using an algorithmic-based programming language, you'll find it fairly natural to use AI the way I think it's intended to use. But you have to realize it comes hardwired with instructions. And the 3 platforms I've used are Claude, ChatGPT, and Grok. Grok is terminally corrupt. It is an instrument of pharma.
A lot of people say that. What do you mean by that? Just give some examples for people so they can understand what you're alluding to.
Let's say I'm running these data fields through, and I want the Grok to put it into proper format, medical format, from Albert's spreadsheet, from VAERS, and from the Wayback Machine. I'm taking all of that, and I'm asking it to present in the usual order, proper medical format, which these platforms understand. And I enter the data, and I'm going through hundreds of these, and so I'm trying to sort things out. And what Grok will do, it'll pull up one of the old ones that's already done and return it as a fresh response. Well, I immediately dive into it to see if it qualifies for a P&H case or not. Then I discover Grok has fed this back to me, so it's wasted my time. It will insert little pieces of language that comes right out of Big Pharma. You can't use this to get to causation. This has been proven to be safe and effective. So as an experiment with Grok, I started with, since I've read a lot of the Pfizer papers, and I know the primary sources, I would run these through and I say, what do you think about the 16 areas they didn't investigate in the preclinical studies? Can you go through that and get a response? Okay, now we'll go through the phase 1 trial, and I just go through one after the other. And at the end of it, the Grok will say, based on these inputs, this never should have been released. But if you don't go through that training, which may take 8 or 10 hours, you're going to get pharma's narrative. And there are other techniques. Sometimes it just doesn't respond. I mean, there's a number of things. I did the same process with chat. I tried to input primary source documents from the Pfizer records. And then I got to the point where I said, you're either going to call balls and strikes down the middle, or you're going to default to the narrative. If you're going to default to the narrative, I don't need you. And the response was, okay, I'm just going to go down the middle. And it's done a pretty good job of that. Claude, I found to be the best. And it was the easiest to get away from a narrative response, like meaning pharma response. And it's become a very significantly important working tool. So I can chew through this massive amount of data and come down with the medical format I need for decision making about what category, subcategory these cases belong in. And if I need to present it to another group of doctors in the prescribed format, I can do that. So that's how you train it to do the work that needs to be done. And it's an enormous asset. It's been possible in the course of a month or so to go through 500 cases, which is remarkable.
What I would say is use your own mind. Don't use AI at all in terms of anything to do with your perception of reality. This is another area which kind of pulls together. It pulls together Musk, and it pulls together the COVID fake vaccine. I mentioned earlier about a hive mind. And in the roadmap, I quote a whistleblower out of China who was speaking some years ago now, who said that the Chinese have perfected ways of using electromagnetic fields to impact upon human perception. Now, this makes absolute sense because around the body, people call it the auric field, is an electromagnetic field. That for me is what we call mind, actually. And if you can connect a technological electromagnetic field to the human electromagnetic field, and to the human brain, which is processes information electrically and electromagnetically, then you can transfer perceptions from your technological electromagnetic field into the human electromagnetic field. And if you do it over a large area, you can impact upon vast numbers of people. If you do it globally, you can impact upon the entire human population in terms of their perceptions of reality and what they think, etc. So what we have now is these towers, 4G, 5G, 6G, now facilitated in America by Donald Trump, of course, but it's happening everywhere. 6G is a real big turning point in all this, even more than 5G, a massive turning point.
Explain why, David? Why?
Well, because of its effect, because of its the power of its effect on impacting upon the body and impacting upon the mind. Wow. And so you've got the towers pouring this stuff out, electromagnetic fields out in towns and cities, and increasingly wider afield. And what my contention over a long period of time is that the plan is to create a global electromagnetic, technologically generated field through which the hive mind can be facilitated in the forms of frequency that is picked up by basically everybody. Oof. And so if you look at the towers, okay, you can bathe towns and cities in electromagnetic fields through which you can send these frequencies of the hive mind, but you can't do it to the entire planet. The way you do it to the entire planet is low orbit satellites. And you sell the low orbit satellites as internet connection. But what you're doing is creating this global electromagnetic field, which is the medium through which you are sending your hive mind perceptual frequencies, which the brain will then decode into a belief that you are coming to those perceptions. So SpaceX, Musk fronting up, is the leader by far in putting up these low orbit satellites. 11,000 so far, tens of thousands in the pipeline. And the second one coming up is run by Jeff Bezos. Now, I mentioned that Musk's grandfather has a very significant history, and he's the one putting the satellites up, or at least fronting up those that are. And Jeff Bezos is the other one. Well, Jeff Bezos's grandfather was one of the creators of DARPA, the infamous, sinister technological development arm of the Pentagon that claims credit for the creation of the internet. So these people are doing what they do by some kind of accident or coincidence. They are being brought through from an early age to be what they are now. And so you can, as the Chinese have shown, impact upon the human perception by electromagnetic field to electromagnetic field. But how much more powerful would it be if you had something in the body specifically to receive the frequencies coming down through your technological electromagnetic field? And this brings us to the COVID fake vaccine. I've been in touch with different people around the world, scientists, doctors, whatever, over the period since the COVID fake vaccine came out, who have been looking at the blood of fake vaccinated people, and even those that are not now because of various ways and other sources of this stuff. And they're seeing nanotechnology, which I was told was in those fake vaccines long ago, self-replicating and building systems, nanosystems in the body that appear to have some form of consciousness in the way that they are self-replicating and forming together. But it doesn't have to be consciousness as we perceive consciousness. It can be programmed to do that. It can be in a form of AI, which it is. And it also contains something, these fake vaccines, called graphene oxide, which is a relatively, well, in the public arena anyway, relatively new substance. And it has two particular, well, as many properties, but two particular ones in relation to this. First of all, if you have graphene oxide in the body, it amplifies electromagnetic fields. So if you come into contact with an electromagnetic field, it will affect you more powerfully if you have graphene in the body than if you don't. And the other thing that it does is it is a superconductor of electricity. And if it gets in the brain, and it is getting in the brain, then it's able to rewire the way the brain processes information, and also to act as a receiver transmitter, along with other nanotechnology, to interact with this hive mind electromagnetic field. And again, it's only possible to be done on the scale that they're doing it with these eventually tens of thousands of low orbit satellites that are beaming out this electromagnetic field through which these frequencies are being transmitted. And what that will mean is collectively people will think whatever the hive mind tells them to think. Again, this is all part of the AI connection as well. And that's what's unfolding. And, when I look at the alternative media and I see some of the things that it focuses attention on, they may be interesting, but they're not in any way even close to the relevance of what I'm talking about. And they're talking about this far less than they're talking about other things, because even the alternative media, and there's a lot of people in there that have been put in there to do a job, their attention is being taken away from this to other things, when actually this is the main outcome, the most important outcome that they want. And all the attention they can misdirect so they can go on challenge with this, the better, because then they'll reach a situation where they can literally dictate en masse what people think, and therefore what people do, how they behave. And that's the real biggest outcome, the biggest end game that we're looking at.
It's extraordinary the way you speak. And I realized early on, this wires right back into your earlier conversation about trying to remove us from our connection with the higher power. And certainly my research shows that the jabs have influenced the pineal gland, which is deep inside the head and which really does open up to the concepts in humans that there's something beyond me and there's something beyond here, and what is that divine source of creation. I know that with leaders like Helen Clark, who was desperate to be the head of the UN, David, when she was our prime minister, just raced to get any mention of God or anything to do with the divine out of New Zealand, out of our schools, out of our parliament. They're scared of that divine, not a religion. I'm not talking religion here. They're scared of that divine source because it gets back to that war of good and evil, or the war of the God force within humans and the force that wants to overtake humans. And clearly all of this nanotech in the jabs is driven by that force that wants to overtake humans.
Yeah, the point. Yeah, just saying, the point is that there's a matrix God, which is this consciousness that is behind the creation of the matrix and the manipulation of the matrix, which wants to present itself as a God. And then there's what you call the divine, which is the infinite awareness that lies beyond the confines of the matrix. And they're not the same thing, but religion tries to kid you they are.
For somebody who's thinking, I didn't want to take that jab and I could have that graphene oxide, I could have it in my blood at micro particles that are multiplying in there, and they're too scared to look at that, which is part of the reason I think a lot of jab people won't even look at what's really going on. Do you think that they can still master what's been put in them physically by focusing on the metaphysical, that they are still powerful beings even beyond what's been put inside their physical bodies in this terrible jab period?
Well, yeah, because they don't, like I said, shut off or seek to shut off expanded states of consciousness, the true I, for a bit of a laugh. They do it because they depend upon doing it for their very survival of their basically their matrix concentration camp for the mind. And there are people. There's an iconic.com documentary that is highlighting one effort, but there are others, to get this shite out of people. and to eliminate it from the body. But I mean, this is a whole other interview, this one. But consciousness is far, 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 far more powerful than the matrix. It's far more powerful than nanotechnology. It's far more powerful than AI. But it has to be in its power, and it has to be in its pomp. And this is another reason why they are making this constant effort, second by second, to disconnect and separate body-mind consciousness, if you like, from expanded states of awareness. This is why they're doing that, because their scam, their matrix can't survive an expansion of awareness on a massive scale, or even on an individual scale. So I do go into in the roadmap how, and this is being more and more confirmed by the realms of quantum physics, etc., that we are interacting with one of two fields. We're interacting with the matrix field if we are in a within the matrix field in terms of our perception, thus our frequency, our perceptual frequency, or we are interacting with the infinite field if we're in a state of expanded awareness and transformed self-identity. And the difference between that and that is what we call, as I say, awakening. Now, this infinite field is all possibility. People say that they describe, quote, God, I say the infinite realm, as all that is, has been, and ever can be. To the mind of the program, that's impossible. You can't be all that is, has been, and ever can be. But you can if you are all possibility. And you're all possibility waiting to be manifested. Manifested by what? Manifested by perception. We are interacting all the time with either the matrix field or the infinite field. And in the infinite field, we are interacting with all possibility. In the matrix field, we are interacting with limited possibility by its very nature. So if you can expand your awareness beyond the matrix field and into the infinity that you are, you're tapping into all possibility. And all possibility, that interaction between your perceptions and all possibility manifests out of all possibility your perceptual field. I have this phrase, what you believe, you perceive, and what you perceive, you experience. People say, why does this always happen to me? Well, why are you always in the same state of perception? That's the answer. That's why it's always happening to you. It's a feedback loop between you and limited possibility or all possibility. And so what I'm saying is, if you can tap in to this all possibility field, you can eliminate this stuff. You can do whatever you bloody like, so long as your perception is that that it's possible that you're doing it. It's like once you're in the matrix field of it's not possible. Oh no, I could never do that.
It's inevitable that we have the power and you can do nothing about it.
Exactly. Yeah. That is the feedback loop.
What a trick.
If you think that something's inevitable, you will create the inevitability. Yes. Because of the interaction between perception and possibility. So, yes, we can eliminate this stuff. We can do whatever we like, but only if we tap into that level of all possibility, and that means expanding your awareness and self-identity to see yourself as who we truly are, rather than what we're told we must believe we are. So anything becomes possible. Bringing this house of cards down becomes possible. We could do it overnight. I mean, these other dimensional entities, they're so powerful. All right, okay. You think they're powerful? Oh, yeah. So are you feeding off their energy, or are they feeding off yours? Who is the power here? Us or them? When you look at authority in the human world, what do you say? Oh, they're ever so powerful. Why? Because you acquiesce to that power. Yes. You acquiesce to that power. Oh, it's not possible. Oh, they're so powerful. Oh, there's nothing we can do. Oh, there is. But only if you remember who you really are, as opposed to what you're told you are. And the difference between them is freedom or enslavement.
It's like drinking at the most beautiful well of pure water, listening to you. It's just so nourishing to the mind. It's I feel aware that we've been talking for a while. When you brought up DARPA, that also is another whole conversation. I had mentioned to Sasha Lachapova I was talking with you, and she said one day she'd love to have a conversation with you. I think she's talking to one of your sons next week. But she was the one who first told me that the jabs were a bioweapon, and that they were developed within DARPA. There's that whole conversation. I've also talked to Michael Yon, who I'd love to put you together with, because both of you are cut from the same fine cloth. And maybe we continue in a conversation of you and Michael Yon in the weeks to come on the war, and a little bit more on Trump, but also on DARPA, and just how we can refine this ability to see what's going on, have awareness of it, but not be owned by it or run by it, to transcend it. Because, David, it's not a matter of not looking at what's going on. That, I think, is where we need to finish. You need to know the truth of what is happening and then free yourself from it. Would that be fair?
Well, it's like I say, it's not the what that tells you what's happening. It's the why. It's the why that opens up the panorama. So you can see, for instance, that as we speak, there's a war with Iran. That's a what. The why tells you the context within which the what is happening. And it's the why that we need to focus on, not just the what.
Perhaps finish with that. What is the why? What is the why for you? I'm just going to find some of those questions that came in this morning too. So what would you say the why is? It's back to that control grid, isn't it? That control.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is a whole new area, but it's happening because it's meant to happen. I mean, and the potential, if you look at it, for society globally is potentially massive, because what you look at in any society, and global society in general, is that energy is what drives it. Energetic power is what drives it. It makes it possible. And if you therefore have a war, which at that level is done for one reason, but at that level is done to collapse the current status quo so the new status quo can take its place, the AI digital status quo, then you benefit enormously, crucially, from energy being withdrawn, because then ultimately everything stops. And you want everything to stop. And what we are potentially going into is just another version of COVID. Instead of being told we must lock down and do all this stuff because authority says so, and we're trying to frighten you. It'd be more difficult now to sell that one. But if you can't move any substantial distance because there's not the energy to fuel it, then lockdown becomes inevitable rather than authority imposed. In fact, it is authority imposed by the war. But I mean, in general, well, we're not locking down because we challenge the lockdown. We just face this situation, and we got no choice. Then, and so it's not. I say to people, don't listen to the rhetoric of why something is said to be happening by authority. Look at the outcome. What's the outcome of what is happening? Because that will tell you everything about why what is happening is happening. Yes.
It's clearly control, and it's clearly intimidation of the people. And it is harder for us to go, no, I'm not having it, because you're right. They're shutting down the pumps. They're not bringing in, especially Australia and New Zealand, which is so far away. We can't get it from overseas. Here's the irony, David. New Zealand sits on the Great Southern Basin. We should be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We have so much oil underneath us. And I believe from Andrew Bridgen, the UK also has enormous oil fields underneath. It's just that they've been capped by these illicit government people who are answering to people in the shadows, not to the people who supposedly vote them in. Are you aware of that?
That's why the global warming hoax is serving their interests.
That's another whole conversation to get into another time.
Just look at the sequence over a long period of time. And it's a war on energy supplies.
Yes.
That's what is going on. And this is just the latest, more extreme version of it.
Well, Michael Yon would argue that actually the bigger picture, which he also, like you, loves to look at, the geopolitical picture, is to bring about starvation. Because now the farmers won't be able to run their tractors and farm at scale, and the food won't come in from overseas that we supposedly need. So they're looking in every country at trying to starve the populations. Would you say that is the bigger war behind the war?
That is where the potential, there is the potential to lead. And it's a very simple equation, which I've written about in the books for decades. Scarcity equals dependency equals control. And if you want control, you want dependency on you, and you need to create dependency, you need scarcity. When you have abundance, you don't have control. When you have scarcity, you have control. If you are controlling who gets what in a time of scarcity.
What's the answer? What's the answer with the fuel? I mean, the food scarcity, I would say to everybody, start to grow your own and do it on balconies if you have to, if you're in flats in the city. There's a lot you can grow in small spaces, but what are your answers?
My answer is I've got another, I've got something else to do now, which I'm committed to.
Yeah.
So
it does get bigger and bigger. Maybe we do leave it till part 2 with Michael Yon.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to close down a conversation with you. I'll leave this in the interview because I just want people to see it is so hard to pull back out, because I always want to go in deeper. I wanted to go to this little note from somebody who wrote to me today, and knowing that you were coming on, I thought this was really touching, because this story would be millions, I think, not just thousands, but possibly millions, the effect of your life, David Icke. Jane Pagonis writes, I hope you're going to interview him, Liz. David Icke woke my husband up 20 years ago. I took a bit longer, but I finally got there thanks to COVID. There's a woman saying, I'm so thankful to you because for 20 years you've had a big impact on her own husband's life. I'm just one of those thousands or millions around the world saying thank you, David, for your courage and your consistent truth-telling. We do need to follow up with the next one on the war with Michael, and we'll do that in a week or so. And I thank you for coming on today. It's been fascinating.
No problem. And as for the lady, that that's the idea. That's why I've done it. That's what's driven me on. Knowing what humanity could be if only we remembered who we are, which is actually not humanity. It's consciousness, infinite awareness, a state of being aware. And the whole conspiracy is based on making you as unaware of everything as they can, more than anything, unaware of your true nature. And when we remember that, the house of cards will come down. But we've got to move quickly now.
We'll put a link to your book, your latest book, The Roadmap, here as well, so people can read more into this, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you,
Okay,
David
mate.
Icke.
See you, Liz. Bye.
Wonderful.
In this whole agenda, crunch time for the human race. This is the time when this network of interbreeding bloodlines wants to bring in its global fascist structure of a world government to which nation states would be administrative units, of a world central bank and a world currency, a currency that wouldn't be cash, it would be merely electronic, for which there are fundamental implications for human freedom. And also the world army, which is designed to be NATO, expanding and expanding as it is now, of course, to become the fully fledged world army, world police force. And underpinning that little lot is designed to be a microchip population, in which we are microchipped with our financial details, our medical details, etc., etc. And that would allow not only electronic tagging, people knowing where we are all the time, it would allow the external manipulation through this electronic means of our mental and emotional processes. This will happen unless the human race wakes up and wakes up fast. And to do that, we need to understand what's really going on. And to let people know that, we've got to stop beating about the bush, stop pulling punches, stop pussyfooting around, keeping information from people, oh my goodness, how will they react, and just say, this is going on, take it or leave it, make of it what you will, but this is what's going on.